This morning for our 2019 Unfunded Infrastructure Report. With us this morning, we have Anthony Aikini, and Anthony is going to take us through the report. And please, at any time, if you have questions, you can type them in the chat, or we will make time at the end of the presentation for anyone to ask questions or to make comments as they might like. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony and take it away.
All right, thank you, Brett. Thank you, everyone else, for joining in on the webinar this morning. Go on over to the next slide. And that is me. I am Anthony Aikini. I'm a site development coordinator here at Buckeye Hills. For anyone who would have any questions, there's my contact info. And I've been here at Buckeye Hills for 6 years now. So we've been putting this unfunded infrastructure report together a few times now. So it'll be good to talk to you all about some of the findings we had on the report. So you can go on over to the next slide. And just for anyone really unsure on where who Buckeye Hills Regional Council is, just a kind of a brief overview here. We are a council of governments located here in Southeast Ohio, and we cover Washington, Monroe, Noble, Morgan, Athens, Meigs, Perry, and Hocking counties. We work with elected officials across all those counties, to help grow stronger communities through our 5 different divisions that we have here: aging and disability, community development, mapping and data, population health, and transportation planning. So we do a little bit of everything. For infrastructure, we are a District 18 liaison for the Ohio Public Works Commission. We're a local development district with the ARC. We're an economic development district with the EDA, a regional transportation planning organization, area agency on aging. So we do a little bit of everything down here in Southeast Ohio and work with many partners on many different projects. But especially for infrastructure, we'll be focusing on the Ohio Public Works Commission and the Appalachian Regional Commission, who all of this data is based on. So yes, a little bit of background here on our unfunded infrastructure report. So as we know, investment in basic infrastructure is really key in building out our regional economy today. To ensure successful development, future business growth, we need infrastructure in our region for development sites, for all kinds of different things, for our municipalities, for our cities, for any economic and community development. Infrastructure is probably the most important thing we need. So to kind of emphasize the infrastructure need we have in this region, really a lot of our funders and outside parties, we had the idea to kind of put this this report together of all the unfunded projects that we weren't able to get funded, and these projects, a lot of it all the information has been collected from the Ohio Public Works projects and our Appalachian Regional Commission 2019 projects in our 8-county region that were unable to be funded. And a lot of these projects, they range from being ready to go right now to kind of still being in the infancy stages, but local leaders are saying to us, these are projects that we want to do in the future. So a lot of these projects we get through our project profiles, things of that nature as well, where people will send us projects, and so we can kind of have an idea of what our communities are looking to accomplish, what kind of infrastructure challenges do we have, what are the needs of our community. And throughout this report, we can see kind of just the tip of the iceberg in this report of what our communities are facing, some of the challenges they're having, and then hopefully we can present this to, outside funders and investors to show the need that is in this region, the need that we do have for more support for our communities for infrastructure. So that's just a little bit of the background, why we decided to start kind of keeping track of this data, and hopefully it will help you while you're trying to fund some infrastructure in the region. So here's an overview of the findings that we found. So through the two different organizations, Ohio Public Works Commission and Appalachian Regional Commission, you can see there we had 13 unfunded projects from the Ohio Public Works Commission, totaling over $28 million. Through the Appalachian Regional Commission, we had 27 unfunded projects, totaling over a total cost of over $33 million. And so these projects, are all covering all kinds of different infrastructure, from water to wastewater. It's fine. Water, wastewater, surface transportation, all kinds of different areas of infrastructure. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, the different types and how we broke those down. But these cover basically A to Z of all your infrastructure, and these are all the projects that we had that in our 8-county region that were unable to be funded through the last cycle. So you can go on to the next slide there, which will just give you a total for our 8-county region is $61,214,058, 40 unfunded projects throughout the two, through Ohio Public Works Commission and Appalachian Regional Commission. So, and these are in all 8 of our counties. So it's not specific to any area of our region. Our entire region has unfunded infrastructure. There are projects, ranging from low 6 figures to, upper 7 figures, 8 figures. So these are big and small, all kinds of different projects that are needed by our region and were unable to be funded. So for our region, that's pretty significant, over $61 million of unfunded infrastructure projects. So this is kind of, like I had mentioned, just the tip of the iceberg, but still this paints a pretty good picture of the need that we have for critical infrastructure here in the Buckeye Hills region. You can go on to the next slide. And so a lot of these projects, all these 40 projects, we broke down by type. So we sorted into 10 different categories for the type. So we had surface transportation, those are, street, road improvements, things of that nature. Water, stormwater, wastewater, those are three very big ones. And as you can see, the most common type were drinking water projects, water line improvements, water tank and water system additions, wastewater improvements, things of that nature. A lot of those projects that's the majority of the unfunded projects we were seeing in this last report. And so, we also had broadband projects, educational, public safety, redevelopment, arts and culture, and recreation. And so, as you can see, they've been broken down, the 40, we broke them down into each specific type that we thought best represented the project. And so we had 11 drinking water projects. As I mentioned, those were the most common. So water line updates, things of that nature. Surface transportation, second, we had 10 of those. Those would have been things like bridge repair, street improvements, things of that nature. Then we had, redevelopment, 6, wastewater, 6. So those were, wastewater improvements, wastewater treatment plant improvements. We had broadband. That's something we'll probably see more and more of here in the next couple of years, as broadband is growing more and more important. As this whole pandemic has kind of shown the importance of broadband, people being able to work from home, having reliable broadband, and so we actually have an unfunded broadband project for the whole region, but we just we don't really have a total cost on that yet. So the cost isn't added into this report, but it is a very large project, and it would definitely increase the amount of unfunded infrastructure, the dollar amount in our region. We haven't even really been able to figure out how much this total project would cost to do. But so broadband, I expect more and more of those projects over the next couple of years to be listed in this type of report as our region and our local officials see the importance of broadband. So then we had 2 of those, and we had then one of arts and culture. We had one educational project, which was, an agricultural educational complex. Public safety, which was, I believe it was a 911 upgrade, center upgrade. And then recreation, which was parks, playgrounds, things of that nature. And one stormwater project. So those were all 40 of our unfunded projects broken down into our different project types. So go on to the next slide. And then also in this report, we decided to break them down by county and by dollar amount per county. So as you can see from the little circle chart there, the most unfunded projects that we had this past year were from Perry County. They had 9, Athens with 7, Washington 5, Hocking 4, Meigs 4, Monroe 4, Morgan 4, and Noble 3. So as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing projects from each of our counties here in the Buckeye Hills region. So it's a problem everywhere where we have critical infrastructure unfunded projects that are going to need to be funded, here. And this kind of helps, to paint the picture that this isn't just a centralized problem for one part of our region. It's all throughout our region. And as you can see there on the right-hand side, we have the dollar amounts. So Athens County had a couple high cost projects. So their cost is quite a bit higher than most of the other counties here of unfunded infrastructure projects. They had over 20 million, so $20.5 million in unfunded infrastructure projects over this last year through their 7 projects. And then Morgan and Perry were pretty comparable there with 11.6 and 11.5 million of unfunded projects over the past year. Hocking County there with 6.7 million. Washington was 6 million. Excuse me. Noble coming in with 2 million, 1.5 million for Meigs, and 1.2 for Monroe County. So quite a bit of cost for each county for their unfunded project. So, and each county, as you can see, with numerous projects. So this kind of just helps to show just the tip of the iceberg, and still, the cost for some of these counties as just the tip of the iceberg is still pretty substantial. So still work to be done to try and get these projects funded here in the future. I can go on to the next slide. So really that is our whole report that we put together here for this previous year. And some of the conclusions I hope you can take away from this is that there really is an immense amount of unfunded infrastructure in our region. I don't know if people realize it or not, but as we say, this doesn't really show the entire breadth of our unfunded infrastructure, but just the tip of the iceberg. But it's still, I think it still shows to outside funders and agencies the need that we have here in the Buckeye Hills region, in our 8 counties, and really all throughout Appalachia, but specifically our 8 counties. There is a critical need for infrastructure, and a lot of these projects, are infrastructure updates to our old systems. So these are critical things, like drinking water, sewer, wastewater, water line improvements, bridge replacements, street improvements. These are all critical things not being funded in our region. So this hopefully helps to show that we appreciate the projects that are being funded, but we still need a lot more assistance and a lot more help in our region. And hopefully this is something you can kind of show to people, to show the need that is in the region, that is still here, and that we deal with on a daily basis trying to fix. And so then there is a link there on the bottom where you can find our 2019 Unfunded Infrastructure Report. It's on our website at buckeyehills.org/unfunded infrastructure. And it's I believe it's only a little 4 or 5 page report that we put together, kind of just showing all the numbers and the breakdowns that we had in this webinar, just in a little report form. So I believe we may be handing those out, and you're free to print those out and provide those to anyone you think may be interested, or anyone you think would want to have a discussion with me about it. So those are really the conclusions that we've came to with our unfunded infrastructure report. And now I will, if anyone has any questions, we'd like to hear from you, and I try and answer the best I can.
Thanks for that, Anthony. If anybody has questions, I'm going to unmute everyone, and feel free to ask your question or type it in the chat box. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. You can feel free to reach Anthony at his email address there on the screen. You can also reach me, Brett Alphen at buckeyehills.org anytime if you have questions or comments about this. And thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.